On this episode of the Dairyland Initiative podcast, we're going to be talking about digital dermatitis and artificial intelligence. Hi, I'm Courtney Hallbach.
And I'm Nigel Cook.
And this is the Dairyland Initiative podcast,
where we get to discuss issues related to the housing and management of dairy cattle.
Let's dive in. Well, folks, I am really excited that I kicked Dr. Nigel Cook out once again and have a very special guest, one of my dear colleagues, Dr. Dörte Döpfer. She's actually just down the hall from me, so I have the pleasure of seeing her every once in a while in the hall.
I always come and scavenge your cookies, remember?
Oh, yes. So I'm in the community office room, and people like to leave treats, which is very bad for my waistline.
She brings this delicious chocolate from Scandinavia.
Oh, that my Finnish friends, Phaser Blue. This is a hint, too, if Phaser is watching.
You've got many fans over here.
Yeah, so please send chocolate.
Thank you.
But, you know, with Dr. Cook, we have talked a little bit on the lameness subject as it relates to cow housing. And I figured, why not bring in somebody else who's the expert here on digital dermatitis? And I know a lot of your research recently, too, has gone into the field of AI, which is not artificial insemination like JP is working on down the road, but artificial intelligence.
You know, I'm getting too old to kind of crawl behind cows and detect those lesions.
Please.
Have to have some technology to help me.
Well, you're doing a lot of great work for the dairy industry, and I'm excited for our listeners to kind of hear a little bit about your story and how you've come to this point in your career. But could you tell us a little bit about how you got into digital dermatitis to begin with?
Well, it comes with the initials, you know, Dörte Döpfer,
Oh, yeah.
DD. And then in 1990, my supervisor back in Hanover in Germany, when he was sending me over to Utrecht in the Netherlands to start on my master's in epi, he said, why don't you work on your research project about something like lameness, let's say Mortellaro's disease, which is another term for digital dermatitis.
I'd never heard that before.
Because Carlo Maria Mortellaro, who is a character on his own, you should meet him.
Oh.
He's amazing. He's a veterinary surgeon, small animal surgeon in Milan in Italy. He's retired a long time ago, but still dabbling into it. So he's the one who first described this disease as an ulceration, like a wound that is at a skin horn border, mostly of hind feet in cattle. And my supervisor in Germany sent me to Utrecht. And then in Utrecht, they sent me onto a farm within the first week of arrival, not a word of Dutch. And at the Zomer farm and Evo farms, I learned Dutch by looking at cows' feet.
Huh.
And this is when we observed, by following them every other day, lifting the same feet of about 60 to 120 cows, depending on which farm, we started observing certain developments. Because you have to imagine those big lesions, those ulcerations that are very painful for the cows, they don't arise or develop overnight. They need several weeks to develop, sometimes months. It depends on the type of cows. And so they sent me over, and I, on my bike through the Dutch rain, went to the farm, lifted cows' feet with the help of Anne Koopmans, my student at the time. She works for the Dutch Animal Health Service today. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of fun together with Istvan from Hungary, describing those different stages of the D that turned into the M stages, M for Mortellaro's disease.
That's where the M comes from.
Yes,
It took me working at the vet school.
Courtney, it's not the matrix or anything. It's Mortellaro stages that are today part of the ICAR Atlas of hoof diseases in an appendix, because people found it interesting and useful to describe the development of these lesions using the M stages.
So your time out on these Dutch farms really must have had an impact, because, yes. I mean,
I met my husband over there.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep.
Shout out to Ben.
Yes.
If he's listening.
Yes.
Hopefully.
He might one day. Most patient person in the world can deal with me and my DD antiques. I mean, imagine me coming home from a farm with this foot of my favorite Mortellaro cow, and it has to go into the freezer.
Oh,
that takes some. It's gory. But if you look at the lesions behind us here, this is gory. This is painful for the cows. They develop these ulcers. And one message I would love to get across in this podcast is not all of these lesions are created equal. So when we talk about treatment of them, you have to make a difference between these very advanced, very chronic lesions, like the three ones on the, I think, your right.
Something like that.
Right hand side, and the one on the left, the first one, where you see a fresh ulceration in a heifer that is going through this for the first time. We have to make people aware of not all lesions are created equal here,
Yes.
and they need different approaches towards prevention and control. And one of the key things I love to get around is we, the herds managers, are part of the problem for evoking this chronicity in lesions if we make our topical treatments or preventive disinfecting foot baths too caustic for this very severely inflamed part of the skin.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So what are your recommendations for treating DD on farm?
Right. So first, you have to detect them. And I think today in this endemic situation, we were talking about the onset of DD.
Yeah.
First descriptions in North America were from the 1980s when Dr. Rebune first described DD in North American cattle. The talks about these infections, they date back to the 70s already in Europe, in Western Europe, and even earlier than that, when people were kind of watching cows walk and they would see the incidental type of ulcerative lesion. This is different from foot rot and different from interdigital dermatitis. This is digital dermatitis, and in its active acute form, current form, and then the chronic form. And then it took until the 90s to find the big outbreaks on North American farms. And today you have to see that it's mostly endemic around the globe, wherever intensive cattle husbandry is happening.
Yeah. So are you seeing this more so in herds that are in facilities, or was this also out on pasture?
It's out. So it used to be the saying that on pastures cows are safer from digital dermatitis. That's not the case anymore, because cows very often, and beef cattle particularly, the awareness about DD in beef cattle is increasing drastically. But wherever cows cross paths, all walking through the same gate, all drinking from the same water troughs, particularly with muddy and moist conditions, this is where DD is being passed on, particularly when they have already macerated skins at that skin horn border. Then the treponemes, we were talking about what causes DD. It's a combination of environmental bad hygiene. There's a genetic predisposition in black and white, so Holstein Friesian cows, plus infectious pressure under bad hygiene condition. This is where you see DD lesions emerge more. So skin maceration because of humidity and bad hygiene, plus genetic predisposition, plus infectious pressure. This is where you get huge outbreaks of DD.
So I think that hygiene component
Yes.
is really important, like
Really
you say. And I know I've heard some people just in talking that they think it's primarily an issue in our freestall housed herds. But no, as you say, that's not the case. And there is this growing awareness in beef herds as well.
Yes. And it starts in beef cattle even earlier than we thought. So it's not just in the feed yards, in the sales barns. No, it's as early as cow-calf pairs.
Wow.
And that message needs to go out.
Yes.
And people are increasingly aware and trying to do the best. I mean, they're really good, willing people trying to do their best. Dairy as beef. So raising awareness, for example, through your podcast, is really important, and showing some pictures of different degrees of chronicity, the awareness that if we acidify preventive foot baths extremely to like a pH of 1.5, or 2, that will maintain these inflammations and increase chronicity, and therefore the number of flare-ups again.
Yeah. So if, you are out on your farm and you're just walking through the barn, is this something you can easily see? Are you looking in the parlor? Are you walking through pens? Or are you relying on your hoof trimmer to diagnose these different stages of DD?
I didn't quite answer your first question.
That's
about
true.
how
I was
going to
maybe kind of come back to it,
But so detection of DD
Yeah.
is crucial as early as possible before you see the chronic stages emerge, because the best hope you can have for topical treatment of individual cows is that you bring them into a state where it is responsible to put them through a maintaining, disinfecting foot bath. So the expectations about topical treatment are often totally overdrawn, like they are too high. But we can bring them back from this acute active ulcer to a state, we call it the M4 stage. So the ulcerative state is called M2, the chronic stage is called M4, and hopefully without proliferations like the two far right images here, which you have to imagine is like a wart bulging from your skin. That's what these chronic stages represent. And their topical treatment really does not help much.
Yeah.
So we want to prevent proliferations, this big bulging blob of tumor-like tissues. The skin scales are totally out of control and cannot really be be influenced much.
I'm glad somebody finds this interesting, because this just turns my stomach looking at these images.
Yeah, it's not really dinner conversation with
Nope.
non-veterinarily or non-cow oriented people.
Nope.
But raising awareness is, you have to talk about it. You have to talk about different signs of chronicity and how to prevent them. So you mentioned hoof tremors.
Yeah.
Hoof tremors are so important. If you look at this middle right image here, you have overly high heels. You have this functional heel horn that has this heel horn erosion in layers. This is where the hoof tremors come in. And we have to realize and make people aware, like the long-term consequences of DD are much more severe, like sole ulcers, wall abscesses, actual wall abscess, toe tip necrosis as well, because cows that cannot walk well will adjust their weight bearing.
Yeah.
And then you get a lot of chronic mechanically induced consequences of DD. So we have not even started to truly estimate the economic impact of DD. There's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
But the consequences of chronic DD upon the functioning of weight-bearing horn has to be talked through and has to be thought through together with hoof tremors. So a well-schooled hoof tremor is essential if you want to have a population level of prevention of and control of DD.
Exactly. So just like your veterinarian nutritionist, your hoof trimmer should definitely be involved as a team player. It's
Absolutely.
a team effort.
Yeah.
For sure.
And to have a hoof trimmer who is willing and able to communicate about this makes it so precious to have that team assembled.
Yeah. So you've mentioned foot baths.
Yep.
What are your recommendations for foot baths?
Yeah.
In terms of the solution and...
I mean, you've seen the picture about the ideal foot bath, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to just jump ahead through my slides and show you this ideal foot bath image one more time. So this is... Today we're going to referencing Dr. Cook anyways, right? He's with us. The spirit is with us.
Yeah, this has been shown
right. You've
so many times.
Right.
Well, not maybe in this podcast, but hopefully it's gotten around on the internet.
Right. So since 2012, we at FAPM here, we seem to have an idea, but we want long foot baths with narrow, high insteps to make cows walk through this. I like to walk through foot baths just to see how and feel how slippery that is.
Yeah.
But then if you ask me how to implement a custom hoof bathing strategy, I say use pen walks. Yeah, or be positioned somewhere where all your cows walk by and exiting a milking parlor. Or we teach our students how to get them into single file and herd them according to their flight zones so that we get this little glimpse of the hind feet for scoring cows according to DD. But suppose that you go for pen walks once per week or once per month at the maximum in terms of time intervals.
Yeah.
And you install a foot bathing regimen for the endemic state. We're not talking outbreaks.
Okay.
In the endemic state where there's no acute active outbreak, you want to have your foot bath running at Monday, Wednesday, Friday, once per day, for example, with the right dimensions and design. That's why I showed you the ideal hoof bath image again. So I walk along these pens while cattle are feeding in head gates, for example. And I want to know which of these chronic lesions are proliferative. Because you have to imagine these proliferative lesions, they're actually like time bombs. If you make them walk through the wrong foot bath, I know, it's awful.
It's so awful.
You have to imagine these skin cells, these keratinocytes in there, they don't communicate well, they don't differentiate well. This is like a tumor together mixed with these treponemes. Remember what causes DD, the risk factors I mentioned, but there's a bacterial microbial component to this where always treponemes, those are corkscrew shaped, strictly anaerobe, they hate oxygen. Bacteria, they go deep down into this tissue, then they go into kind of a hibernation state, they change their morphology from spiral into like a chain of little granules, and they go to sleep. But so they are pretty smart. They create an ecology where the host cow cannot reach them from within, and us with our preventive foot bath cannot reach them from outside.
Those are smart little buggers.
They are. They're mean. They're not zoonotic. So, I mean, me having worked with this for 35 years, look at this. My hands are fine.
Clean.
Yeah.
I think.
I shower every day.
Okay, good.
So it's okay. But we're talking about detection of DD. If I delay my detection because I'm not efficient during my pen walks, or whoever is watching out for these lesions, and then wait for 2 weeks until treatment, if I don't detect this early, then a larger than a quarter size, larger than 2 centimeter in diameter lesion will create these satellite lesions here to the side. See how the healthy skin is kind of eaten away from the original lesion?
Yeah.
Just keep breathing, Courtney, and maybe we should get you a
Is there a trash can somewhere?
No, be careful. Anyways, call these satellite lesions. That's a sign of delayed detection. And I thank my fellow Hoofdtrimmer, Jamie Sullivan from Manitoba in Canada. So many images are being contributed to this discussion. We should continue this conversation. So satellite lesions of the M2 lesions, they are 2 centimeters in diameter or larger. They will appear whenever there's delayed detection. So this is not a good sign. When I see this on farms, I have to talk to them about how these lesions are detected. Then if I see a lot of these M4 lesions, the chronic ones with the proliferations, I have an indication that either their topical treatment agent is too caustic, because it maintains proliferation and inflammation of that skin, or I know that their foot bath is too acidic or too highly concentrated or used in too high of a frequency. And there's an optimum. We want to reach the optimum frequency, concentration, and consistency of that foot bath in order to prevent this type of lesions with the reservoirs to happen.
So if you are going out on farm and doing a troubleshooting consult, are you taking foot bath samples? Are you asking the farmer about their SOP for how often they're foot bathing? Like how do you get to those answers?
I absolutely ask what the frequency is, what type of product they use, at which pH, which concentration. I try to get a gauge as to what type of farm I'm facing, a farm that is not having many outbreaks, a farm that has had an outbreak in the past, but never again, so they have an endemic control, or a farm that is experiencing repeated outbreaks. Depending on that, I type the farms into type 1, 2, and 3, and I give advice about what to do with the number of cows that have these proliferative lesions, because that's a sign that there's too much caustic chemical being used, either for topical treatment or for the foot bath.
Okay.
And one thing to remember, and this is a very, very important message, is foot baths, disinfectant foot baths, are not meant for treatment of DD. They're meant for prevention and then maintenance of an endemic state under controlled circumstances.
Yeah, I would say that is like, if we had to do a key point, bullet point right here, that foot baths are for prevention.
There's
not
more.
treatment.
Another key point, right?
I love it. Keep it coming.
Once I have a foot bath regimen, remember my pen walks, and I monitor for M4s with proliferation and M2s with proliferation. Once I have the right frequency and concentration installed, the first thing you see within about 3 to 6 weeks is that these time bombs with the proliferations, those big wart-like chunks of nausea-inducing lesions, we have to get you out on farm to show you something. The first thing that happens, and if you take one thing from our conversation today, is the first thing happening is that these flaps of tissue, these proliferative lesions, they start shedding dead tissue. And we want to reach this stage, right? So this is the first sign that something about your foot bathing, combined detection of acute lesions and topical treatment strategy is working. So if you take anything from today, foot baths are for prevention only, not treatment. And the flaps fall first. That's a good sign.
All right. So what would your foot bath strategy be then?
So in the endemic state, as I said, that's different from the outbreak state. In the endemic state, when you have had an outbreak in the past and you want to maintain your current kind of manageable state of disease for DD, you do your pen walks once per day, once per week, once per month, depending on the size of your population. And you observe as to whether you have red, unhappy smiley trends or green smiley trends.
I like that.
Now
Simple.
we're talking.
Emojis. I like it.
Right. So that's a matter as to whether the number of chronic lesions with those extra wart-like chunks, the proliferative lesions, if they increase in numbers, then that is an indication that your foot baths are too aggressive, too caustic, because we're maintaining the inflammation. We are producing more extra uncontrolled tissue. We don't want that.
Okay.
Unhappy smiley.
Yeah.
But if the number of proliferative lesions is starting to decrease because you're shedding those flaps. You don't even need to take a hoof trimming knife and cut into these lesions. No need for that. If you adjust your hoof bathing strategy to the right concentration, frequency, and pH, and the right chemical, then you get the shedding of the flaps from your chronic lesions. You get less recurrence, particularly from the M2 lesions that are on that pedestal of extra skin.
Yeah.
So 2 happy smiley emojis. And the first sign of your chronic lesions and diminishing, particularly the proliferative ones, are the flaps. And if you see the number of recurrent M2 lesions going down, that means that you can continue managing your risk factors, improving your hygiene, talking to your hoof trimmer, customizing your foot bath, and being aware of those cow types. So we talked about farm types dynamic.
Yeah, but what about cow types?
Cows react differently to DD. So if you think about my first picture, you had that first time around lesion.
Yeah.
And it's surprising, even on endemically affected farms, there are cows that never get a lesion. They never.
What's their secret?
There might be a genetic background to this resilience to DD.
Yeah.
So we might have to.
Is that future research?
Actually, it's already completed.
Okay.
So we know there is a genetic predisposition towards chronic DD.
Okay.
So the type 1 cow never gets an M2 lesion, that big ulcer. A type 2 cow gets it once and then never again. And your type 3 cow makes those time bombs. Remember the chronic M4 lesions that then recur into M2 lesions. So ulcers plus the proliferation. You're looking at me like, what is she talking about?
There's so much. I'm trying to wrap it all in my head. I'm like,
But it's easy.
yeah.
It's easy. We have a decision tree about this.
That's great. That's what I need.
Right. So there's a decision tree. If you want that, we can send that around.
Yes.
And animal caretaker once summarized it to me like, okay, does the skin look weird? Yes or no? If it doesn't look weird, M0, cow is happy, right? Happy feet.
See, that's the kind of language I can understand.
Does it do look weird? The second question you ask is there something that looks like a wart, right? Are there signs of chronicity? Those could be the wart-like lesions, proliferations.
Yeah.
They could be just a callous surface. Remember when you spit your garden?
Yeah.
Or you row a lot in a boat, you get this callus here.
Yep.
So if you imagine you roll your skin, the affected skin between your fingers, that's a hyperplasia, right? Like a hyperkeratotic type of thickening of your skin. So we call those hyperkeratosis or proliferation. Those are signs of chronicity. And then the third question you have to ask, is there an ulcer? And how big is that ulcer? So if there's no wound, then that's a certain stage of disease. If there's the wound, is it smaller or larger than 2 centimeters? There's the decision tree. And so all these M stages actually are feathered out based on this decision tree. And we could probably show a picture.
Yeah, we
right?
could.
We can afford that.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. Another time.
This is all bringing back memories of my first week here in the office when I shared an office with Dr. Arturo Gomez. And when I walked in, he had this horrible, like the most
smell.
No, well, maybe, but
We do smell at times. Sorry.
there, yes,
And it's not
after
our
some
feet.
farm visits. It gets a little smelly in here, but he just had one of the worst images of DD printed off on his bulletin board, and thankfully, my back was to him all of the time. But that first week coming into the office and seeing that, I was like, what should I get myself into? Who am I working with now? And I'm just, again, glad there are other people that are interested in this area.
It's unbelievable what people spend their time with.
Yes.
But you're saying something. We all have these monster collections of the worst lesions imaginable. Yep. I truly think caring for cows involves preventing DD and controlling DD.
100%.
So I think it's time well spent that we have these conversations, because DD actually affects most of the farms in North America.
Yes. Now there has been a new tool that you have brought into the whole area of DD, and that is AI. So
Yeah.
what got you interested in AI, and how did you connect it to your DD research?
So I love what I do, right? I have this set
can
of
tell.
quantitative skills. I love teaching
Yeah.
AI to veterinary students and
Which
life
you're
scientists.
actually doing right
Yeah,
now.
right now we're going to be presenting the
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow we will have presentations. An awesome lot of students. About 10% of our vet students take this class, between 5 and 10% per year. What got me interested? AI is all around it. us. It's here. It's not a matter of 2 years from now or 10 years. It's right here and influencing our lives. We are dealing with digital natives. The next generation of life scientists and vet students are ready to use technology. So I truly believe that if, as veterinarians, we don't get involved in AI, and that means being critical consumers of AI technology, being able to have the verbiage and words to talk about it, if we don't do that, somebody else will, and we might be flooded with technology that is not what we think is appropriate or is what we want for our daily practical life.
Yes.
So I started self-teaching and then taking online classes and more classes in 2017, 2016.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Right. And so first we used Raspberry Pis, then we, of course, local laptops.
Not actual Raspberry Pis.
Not actual Raspberry Pis?
The ones you eat?
Oh, no Raspberry. Oh, I got you. Now you got me.
See, this is what I'm thinking of, dessert.
Well, yeah. No, Raspberry Pis, for birthday cakes aside, we use a little technology, a little device that is actually pretty common. It has like a double matchbox size, a large matchbox size, and it's a small microcomputer that can control devices like cameras. From there, we graduated to using microcomputers with the idea of making this technology portable. Because the one of the big struggles is you have to put cameras within the reach of cattle, particularly when it's about DD detection using artificial intelligence enhanced type of technology. And whatever is within reach of cattle is going to be gone, kicked, or somehow slobbered about in no time.
Oh, yes.
Right. So it's one thing of making pretty models that will detect DD. The second thing is to implement this within the cow's reach. And we have to be within the cow's reach because this is at the foot level, right?
Yes.
At the ground level.
Yeah.
Of detection if we want to be successful. And we cannot afford, I think, to put the cow on a kitchen chair, lift her foot and take a picture. No, we want to be detecting this while they're walking somewhere without disturbing them.
With as little intervention as possible.
Correct. And this is where, our work came in. We have to have these cameras self-cleaning at ground level to detect in real time, sometimes without web access, on batteries.
Yep.
Because it's not handy to have a power plug when you're driving a pickup truck, right?
Nope.
I mean, there are pickup trucks with plugs, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
We cannot afford that. So I always tell people, if you want to use AI technology, you have to ask about 5 questions.
Okay, what are the 5 questions?
My 5 questions are, how fast is your detection system using this AI enhanced technology, camera models? Because a standing head of cattle can be afforded to be detected in a very calm pace, terms of frames per second. A running beef steer, you have to be very fast and efficient in time to detect something. So how fast is your system? Where are the computations done? In the cloud, locally on your computer, on a microcomputer, on your cell phone? Like I have a cell phone that has an app that does this in real time. I was traveling through India, and there are cattle all over the place in India, walking behind cattle in Indian streets and detecting no digital dermatitis with my little app. So today our mobile phones are able to host these apps. Am I depending on web access? Because some areas within dairy farms are so remote, there is no web access.
Yeah, there's no web access. Things get done later at the office.
Do I depend on power, right? Do I need a power plug, or is it battery run? And the last one is actually the bottleneck of all these AI applications in general, the heat abatement. During the computations, a lot of heat is generated, and you cannot afford to pin something like a camera that heats up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 76 degrees Celsius for the ones who like that. You cannot afford to pin that to a person's body or to some animal.
No.
So heat abatement can be a bottleneck when it comes to AI technology. 5 questions, right? So
simple.
Those have to be asked. And this is the type of verbiage we are teaching our veterinary students to be able to face a conversation in an informed way.
And I've heard you give a great talk at AABP last September about how...
I think you're my greatest fan. You're always present. Thank you for being such a good colleague.
Of course. But I remember you talking about ways that practicing veterinarians can start to utilize AI in the field. And that goes beyond veterinarians as well. It can be any type of consultant on farm. But I would say, just from my very low-key experience with AI myself. There's so many more tools that are available for free online to allow you to utilize that in helping troubleshoot issues on farms. So what have you been doing with AI to look at DD?
Right. So we have detection models for the different DD stages, these M stages, particularly with focus on then taking decisions on farms regarding prevention and control. But then detecting DD is one thing, combining it with the cow identity, so reading ear tags, that's possible, particularly if cows are standing in a milking parlor, like an organized way. It's not perfect because you have to imagine that that little lesion is very small compared to the entire body of a cow or the image size that you have. It's like looking for the needle in the haystack.
Yes.
And that complicates matters.
Yeah.
But so we have had models running live on dairy farms. We can install this. We will be installing this very soon on more dairy farms. And I have a project on for beef cattle, where beef cattle are not standing easily. They run around in messy ways. So there we combine DD detection with lameness detection from above. And normally lameness detection models, they require cows to walk in an organized way in a linear fashion and with the certain lighting. We're doing this now, and one of my students is going to present tomorrow. We're doing this with cows walking and meandering very messily across an alleyway. And we can still detect the lame cows, which I find innovative and I think realistic.
Yeah.
This is how cows walk, and we want to have as little intervention and disturbance of their behavior. Yeah, you mentioned that veterinarians and life scientists, nutritionists, everybody in the team is ready to use technology.
Hopefully.
I hope so too. And with this cycle of the M stages that you can find on the internet as well in our background, I want to say it is amazing what you can teach veterinarians to do in a legal and fundable way, right? As long as it's ethical and legal, we are okay. Veterinarians have learned how to study and how to learn stuff. So using AI, artificially enhanced intelligence today, is just a matter of acquiring knowledge about a toolbox. This is not a mystery or a myth.
I really like how you're comparing it to a toolbox.
Yeah.
Because it seems a little bit overwhelming and like it's taking over the world. But we can harness it and utilize it for good.
I think so. And if we are concerned about our cattle, which many people are, I want to emphasize this really. There are people who really care for cattle. If you want to, for example, among others, prevent digital dermatitis in cattle, AI technology can help because of this efficient 24/7 detection potential. We can teach veterinarians and anyone really, right? Anybody who's teachable and interested, how to use this technology without making too much fuss about it. There's no myth about it. It's just a toolbox. And I want to repeat, caring for cattle means to me improving their well-being, and that means preventing lameness on which DD and therefore AI technology can help prevent DD. That's my claim.
Well, I think that's a great claim. And we will probably end there for now. Is that okay, Dörte?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you so much for joining. It's been a real pleasure for me to hear about how you got into DD, because I'm sure you've told me bits and pieces here and there, but it was new to me. And thank you for putting up with my squirmish faces as you were showing all those lovely photos. But if anybody does have questions about digital dermatitis, I'm sure that Dörte would be happy to be a resource, and I know there's plenty of information out there on the web as well. So
somebody has to do this work.
Yes.
And that means putting your hands onto digital dermatitis lesions and for the best treatment success, knowing that not all lesions are equal.
Yep. Well, thank you all for caring and for listening, and please join us again next time.
The Dairyland Initiative is supported by industry leaders who are advancing cow comfort worldwide. We would like to say a special thank you to our premier sponsor, Saputo, who is providing the global community with high-quality dairy products made from high-quality milk from healthy and well-cared-for animals. We'd also like to say thank you to our other sponsors, SaveCows.com, Zinpro, GPS Dairy Consulting, 40 Barn, Sure Gain Trow Nutrition, Munters, J&D Manufacturing, VES Artex, Ventec, and Kestrel Instruments. Thanks for tuning in to the Dairyland Initiative podcast. Want more Dairyland Initiative? Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on our socials, and visit our website for all of the latest recommendations in dairy cattle housing and management. See you next time.